All right, I am pumped to be joined as I am every single week by the Hall of Famer John Smoltz. John, Hall of Fame weekend just happened, and you're back from that. Thought you'd be out on a golf course today, but you just told me you're not on a golf course. What are you up to today?
Yeah, we got the grandkids just had a birthday party. We missed it, so we taken them to this indoor trampoline place. Probably not great for adults with two new hips, but are having a blast with him. So taking a little break from that.
How was Hall of Fame weekend? You're up there, obviously up there as all the Hall of Famers, living Hall of Famers go up. Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Jim Leland, Joe Mauer. How was the weekend? Any good stories from up there?
It was great, relatively quiet, unfortunately, because of the snafu with the computers and the outage and the flights. We had a few that couldn't make it, that their flights got canceled, and it was hard to get to Cooperstown. So that was a little unfortunate, but I thought everybody did a great job. Jim Leland, playing against him my whole career, you could sense the nerves and the anxiousness. When you've gone through it, you get to sit back and watch everybody kind of sweat it out, so to speak, because it really is a huge moment in your life. So I thought it was great. The weather was great. Everything about that weekend is something special.
What do you remember most about 2015 when you were inducted? Where were your nerves at when you were speaking? What do you remember from that weekend?
Yeah, I just remember never really getting locked in and worried about the emotional part, right? When my parents are down there. And that's why I had the wig underneath the podium to use the wig as a break so that, I could get in a little bit of a laugh. And it really helped me get through my speech, to be honest. But I remember taking the corner in that bus and seeing the people lined up in the lawn there. And it was surreal. It was like, oh my goodness, this is happening. And then when you're back, is to all the great players behind you. That's reality kicking in that you're joining an incredible unit. And look, for me, I never played, never thought about the Hall of Fame. I'm honored beyond belief. There's always going to be this crosstalk on who and what and when you get in. All of that goes out the window when you stand to that podium and you get to deliver what you hope is the most appropriate speech at the time. And for me, I feel like there was only one mistake I made, and there was only one time I went away from my script, and it was forgetting Ted Turner, who was the best owner in the world at the time. And I got a chance in my post interviews to talk about it, but that was the only thing that I felt like went awry.
How does it, so do all the new inductees just load it like the bus? How does that work? You load on the bus and then turn the corner and you're there?
Yeah, they got about two buses that take all the Hall of Famers to the point behind the stage. And when you come around the corner, you get a chance to see the field of people. And anticipating next year will be chaotic. Next year may be the most chaotic Hall of Fame ever when Ichiro gets in there. I mean, the amount of people that are going to come for him, and not to mention CC Sabathia is up and some others and Wagner. So there's always that anticipation of when somebody of that kind of iconic Ichiro, Jeter was going to be massive, and it was. Even Big Poppy and all that. But this has a chance to be the craziest amount of people that we've seen in a long time next year.
Well, John, on to some current happenings in the game of baseball. We got the trade deadline coming up, and one big trade deadline discussion. One name I keep hearing out there is Tarik Skubal, who I believe, as we currently sit, is the best pitcher in baseball this year. He's been fantastic. Um, if you're the Detroit Tigers, do you do you think about trading Tarik Skubal, who's the face of your current team, the face of your franchise as a 27-year-old superstar pitcher? Do you consider trading him?
It's a tough decision, and where I would land it if I'm in an organization of Detroit, and if I have to explain to my fan base it was too good to pass up, then yes, you trade him. A lot's going to be determined at the buzzer, the pressure of teams wanting to get an impact player like him, even though he's a pitcher once every 5 days. It's scarce. There's just not many choices to get to improve your club. So if you're in the playoffs or you're in position of the playoffs and you can strengthen your position, you unload to try to get them. That's the whole beauty of this time. If you're not going in the right direction and Detroit is falling a little bit farther out, then the trade talks get more rapid. But if you're close, that's where it gets difficult because
Yeah.
you can make an argument that the Tigers of late are playing great baseball. I think they won 11 out of 14 or
Best
12 out of
record in
15.
July of anybody.
So that's going to make it increasingly more difficult to trade a guy when you're trending in that position. And but I'm 100% dangle him. I'm 100% making the teams feel like I will trade him, but you've got to sit back and
Interesting.
go, it has to be a no-brainer, and it has to really, really impact the club in a positive way, because that would be a confusing message to send your fan base at this point when you're, let's just say, you're 2 games out of the wild card when the
Yeah.
trade deadline happens.
Well, the last time the Detroit Tigers traded the face of their franchise and the face of the rotation, that pitcher shared a last name with me, and the return didn't go great for the Tigers. So probably a bad taste in Tigers fans' mouths with trading away a superstar pitcher and it not exactly working out very well.
Yeah, and again, that is the downside. But the one thing that I can tell you is look at the Washington Nationals now. I mean,
Yeah.
they made a massive trade, although be it for an everyday player, but who got the best of that? I mean, the Nationals certainly got the best of that. So the younger player today, and arguably is more ready, and we probably don't miss as many of those pieces that are being touted, but it's got to be significant, and it's got to be an impact player that could step into your ball club next year. And this can't be a 3 year down the road
Yeah.
trade. This has to be, you've got to get an impact player, you've got to get someone to replace them, and then you got to get a bonus package that makes it because he's a one every 5 day player. But today, because there's no competition for those kind of players, it can demand almost the same as a position player will.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm mostly on the same page with you. I think unless you get something you can't turn down, I say don't do it. In my mind, again, he's 27. He's a top pitcher in the game of baseball. Who are you looking to get for Tarik Skubal? The next Tarik Skubal? I mean, you're looking to get position players as well in there, but you're probably not going to get a better arm out there. You're obviously looking for position players. And if I'm the Detroit Tigers, and I know they're already there, they're in AAA for the Orioles. If I'm the Detroit Tigers, I'm calling up the Baltimore Orioles. That's the team that I'm going to try and deal with and say, you want to get something done or not? I doubt they're going to get Jackson Holiday. I don't think they're going to get him, but there are plenty of other names down there. But man, I would have a tough time unless it's a super crazy package for sure.
And I'm telling you, the Baltimore Orioles could be in that position. I mean, they have lost so many arms that you don't get this many opportunities to put a young position player lineup in position to go back to back and make up for last year. So
Yeah.
they could be them and the Dodgers. Certainly, the Dodgers are always going to be in the conversation, but whoever's willing to give up the most, and I think there's no doubt that if you're the Detroit Tigers and Holiday's part of that package, you're really listening.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of the league, the Chicago Cubs seemingly a couple days ago announced that they're going to be sellers. Jed Hoyer comes out and says they're not going to make moves that help them in the 2024 season unless things drastically change leading up to the deadline. Um, at the time of us talking, John, they're 4 games out of a wild card spot. Obviously, the National League, pretty much everybody's at least 4 games out. There's a
Yeah.
ton of teams in there. Should the Chicago Cubs be sellers, or should they say, you know what, we're one hot stretch out from being in this thing and being in a playoff spot, or should they go for it?
Well, this is where you have to have a true assessment of your team. And philosophically, it's one thing to say this out loud, but internally, you got to believe you're not as good as some of the teams that are in front of you. So, if that's the case, then you're going to position yourself like the Chicago Cubs have and get people braced for if there's some things that people want from our club, we're going to look at it and we're going to
Yeah,
probably go in that direction, and they've had a good opportunity to show what they're capable of. They haven't really ripped off any stretch. They haven't really shown any edge in their ball club that they have an edge over the next team. It's not their bullpen. It's not their starting rotation, and it's certainly not their offense. So they're kind of stuck a little bit in a place where it looked like they might be in a good place when the season started, but they've shown this kind of neutrality that is kind of they are the exact example of what I said. When you're in a position where it's close, but you as an organization don't feel like you're good enough, you're going to have to go the
Yeah.
other way. And that's going to be tough on a fan base when statistically it looks like you've got just as good
Yeah.
a chance as anybody else.
Well, specifically with Cody Bellinger, if you're going to come out and say, "Yeah, we're probably not going to do anything for this year. We're going to try and make us better in the coming years." Cody Bellinger is on a short-term contract. Is he a name now that all of a sudden you look up, you're a few games out of a playoff spot, you hear your team's going to be sellers? Is Cody Bellinger a name that if you're the Cubs front office, you pitch around, or is he a part of your team for, next year?
No, I think it's all players with the exception of Amada. I mean, there's no, I think when you get to this point, I don't think there's anybody off limits
Yeah.
when you decide you're going to try to reshape your organization for the future. I don't think it's going to be like 4 or 5 pieces they trade off, but I think they're in position to gain things when that's what you want to be able to do. I think the worst thing you can do is ride it out, do nothing, and then you're in the same boat next year.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing if you have a bunch of
Yeah.
injuries and you think, oh, we're just going to be better, so we're just going to stand pat. But it's another thing that if you just don't think you're good enough, then you got to look at resources that make you better. And that's where they're at right now, I believe. And so Bellinger is definitely going to be part of that,
Yeah.
no doubt. But it's again, you signed him. You signed him not for a long term purpose, at
Yeah.
least it didn't seem that way. You signed him for the potential that this could be the issue.
Right. John, what's typically the status quo with guys that are trade pieces that are injured at the deadline? Because we now have Bo Bichette dealing with an injury. We have Cody Bellinger involved in that. There's a few names around the league that were big time trade talk discussions that are now on the IL and will be probably through the trade deadline. What's typically the status quo there? What happens?
Well, I mean, you're not going to get as much unless you know for
Yeah.
sure that they're going to not have any lingering effects. So
Yeah.
whatever it is, there's going to be a lot of conversations, a lot of talking to the doctors and the trainers. These are why decisions at this time come rapidly and they come, at the deadline. And the deadline pressure usually promotes an advantage for your club if you're looking to trade somebody because the teams that need the pieces are the ones willing to give those packages up. So it just lessens, maybe not in Bo Bichette's case, but in the Bellinger, it may lessen the package you get back.
Yeah. John, well, I appreciate it as always, my friend. Thanks for joining me. Get back into the trampoline park and have some fun today.
Yeah, I'm eyeing a little kid right now that just smoked me in dodgeball. So I'm looking after, I'm seeing where he's at.
Go get him. Go get
All
him.
right.
All right, John. Thank you, man. All right. Just wanted to thank John Smoltz for joining us here on Flippin' Bats as he does every single week. Really cool talking to a Hall of Famer every week, taking the time to do this. Coming off Hall of Fame weekend, right when he hopped on before we started recording, he told that story about a kid that just smoked him right in the eye. And he said, "Man, I got to go do an interview." And now he's out for the kid. I was really hoping he would tell that story again. And luckily he did at the end. So that was great. Always a lot of fun. I really hope you guys appreciate having him on and hearing from him every single week. I know how much I do. So please make sure you like, follow, subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify. Also, leave a comment. That does really help, and it's really appreciative. So if you have a few seconds right now, scroll down, leave a 5-star review. That really helps. Follow us on all social media. Follow on our Flippin' Bats YouTube page where we put everything on there. You can watch every single thing we do as well. So thank you all so much for listening. And until next week, my friends, enjoy the weekend, everybody. And remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.